Thousands of National Guards at the U.S. Capitol returned to adequate living quarters. This after bipartisan outrage over the way they were treated. Twitter suspends the account of Iran's leader after posting a call for attack on former President Trump. What are Trump's future plans? And right before leaving office, Trump added dozens of new additions to a list of American heroes that will be honored in a national garden. Who's on the list and why did Trump create it? Tune in to Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. Let's talk about the troops in D.C. Thousands of National Guardsmen at the U.S. Capitol returned to adequate living quarters. That's after being put out in the cold by Capitol Police. According to a statement by a National Guard Bureau spokesman, Inauguration Task Force commander confirms that troops are out of the garage and back into the Capitol building, and the troops will take their breaks near Emancipation Hall going forward. He added, "Our troops are going to hotel rooms or other comfortable accommodations at the end of their shifts." The Guardsmen were sleeping and resting in various places around the U.S. Capitol, including in congressional office facilities and the Capitol Visitor Center. The removal order meant retreating into nearby cold, unheated parking garages and other places outside whenever Guardsmen took breaks from their 12-hour shifts. Many face the cold in facilities without adequate heat, electrical outlets, internet reception, or bathrooms. It was first reported by Politico, which said one unit with around 5,000 troops was told to vacate the Dirksen Senate office building and rest in a nearby garage. The report citing a source saying the garage was, quote, without internet reception with just one electrical outlet and one bathroom with 2 stalls for 5,000 troops. Adding temperatures in Washington were in the low 40s by nightfall. Politico also obtained photos showing the situation. The report sparked bipartisan outrage. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called it outrageous. Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth called the move unreal and unceremonious. She also offered up her office as a temporary place to stay. She added she made a number of calls and heard back from Capitol Police, writing, "Capitol Police have apologized to the Guardsmen and they will be allowed back into the complex tonight." 3 hours later, she said in a follow-up tweet, "Update, troops are now all out of the garage. Now I can go to bed." North Carolina's Republican Representative Madison Cawthorn said the troops deserved better. He also visited them and gave them pizza, as well as offering his office as an alternative sleeping quarter. He also vowed no soldiers will ever sleep on a garage floor in the U.S. Capitol while I work in Congress. Senator Tim Scott said our troops deserve the utmost honor and respect for securing the Capitol, defending democracy this week, adding this is unconscionable and unsafe. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said he ordered the Adjutant General to bring Florida National Guard soldiers home from the National Capital Region. Senator Marco Rubio responded, saying he's proud and grateful to the Florida National Guard and, quote, hopes more of them can go home to their families, their jobs, and their own beds. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott said he was pulling the Texas National Guards back to the state. He had also sharply criticized federal officials over reports that the DOD and FBI were vetting National Guard members. He said in a tweet, "This is the most offensive thing I've ever heard. No one should ever question the loyalty or professionalism of the Texas National Guard." He added, "I authorized more than 1,000 to go to D.C., saying he'd never do it again if they are disrespected like this." According to OANN, Trump said the troops could stay in his hotel in D.C. if needed. More than 25,000 National Guards were deployed to the Capitol ahead of inauguration. So far, there has been no word from either President Biden or Vice President Harris on the National Guard's parking garage incident. While it was all quiet in the Capitol, protests erupted in the West Coast. Antifa marched through the streets in protest of President Biden's inauguration. In Portland, Oregon, the group held signs reading, "We are not governable." They smashed the windows and glass door of the Democratic Party of Oregon's office. Profanity and anarchy symbols were found sprayed on the building. Portland police listed an array of weapons seized from Antifa rioters, including Molotov cocktails, fireworks, knives, and pepper ball guns. Antifa also marched on the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Building, better known as ICE. Police confronted the group of roughly 150 Antifa rioters there. Police confirmed with NTD that 15 people were arrested in Portland on charges that include rioting and reckless burning. In Seattle, Washington, Antifa marched on the iconic Pike Place Market. They left behind smashed windows at both retail stores and a federal courthouse. Walls were similarly vandalized with spray paint and anarchy signs. Police said 2 arrests were made for the destruction. Local news station Como said a 3rd arrest was made related to breaking glass at the original Starbucks location. In California, roughly 60 similarly dressed and equipped Antifa marched around the Capitol. According to the Sacramento Bee, no damage was reported. Police cited only a fence being knocked over. Seattle and Portland have been the scene of unrest for months, with a mix of protesters, including anarchists, Antifa, and other far-left groups, as well as civil rights activists, voicing various grievances and sometimes engaging in violence, damaging property, and clashing with police. Senator Chuck Grassley is urging President Biden to denounce the riots, tweeting he's waiting for Biden to condemn the violence, looting, and arson from the last 2 days in Oregon and Washington state. Neither Biden nor Harris have commented on the incident so far. Following the unrest, Twitter has suspended several Antifa accounts. According to the New York Post, there are at least 4 accounts that have been suspended, with a combined number of over 71,000 followers. It was first reported by American journalist and editor of the Post-Millennial. It's not just Antifa. Twitter said on Friday it had suspended the account of Iran's leader. This after the account posted a photo of Trump golfing in the shadow of a drone. It had text from the Iranian leader's comments in December, saying revenge is certain after the death of a top Iranian general by a U.S. drone. Twitter said in a statement to the Associated Press the tweet violated the platform's policies, but some have pointed out that other accounts linked to the Iranian leader remain active. Speaking of Trump, what are his plans for the future? Top Trump advisor Jason Miller tells Just the News that former President Trump has a number of goals in the next couple of years. One of his major goals is to win back the Senate and the House for Republicans in the 2022 midterm elections. This is to stop what he calls, quote, the Democratic craziness. The Democratic Party currently holds a majority in both the House and the Senate. Miller also reveals Trump plans to be the nation's leader on voter integrity. He said that a lot of the debate over alleged election fraud was centered around abuses of Article 2 of the Constitution, which grants authority to state legislatures to handle many aspects of elections. He expects Trump to work closely with state legislatures to ensure election integrity. Miller adds that Trump will start after undergoing a transition period first. But because Democrats are in control of both Congress and the White House, Miller does not believe Washington will address the issue of election integrity. Although Trump has not said whether he will run for president again in 2024, he told his supporters before leaving office on Wednesday that, quote, we will be back in some form. He also said in his farewell video on Tuesday that, quote, the movement we started is only just beginning. On the same day, Miller tweeted a picture of the White House with a caption that says, until 2025. Now let's talk monuments. Right before leaving office, Trump added dozens of new additions to a list of American heroes that will be honored in a national garden. It's part of his National Garden of American Heroes creation. Trump announced it right before Independence Day when he was at Mount Rushmore. He said, let us go forward united in our purpose and rededicated in our resolve. The president added, we will raise the next generation of American patriots. We will write the next thrilling chapter of the American adventure. And we will teach our children to know that they live in a land of legends, that nothing can stop them, and that no one can hold them down. They will know that in America, you can do anything, you can be anything, and together we can achieve anything. The amended order includes dozens of new people Trump has named as heroes. They include the astronaut Neil Armstrong, singer-songwriter Woody Guthrie, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Jeopardy host Alex Trebek. The order stipulates that the site be open for public access before July 4, 2026, the 250th anniversary of the proclamation of the Declaration of Independence. The order reads, the statue or work of art should also be a lifelike or realistic representation of the individual being depicted, and not an abstract or modernist representation. If we take a look at the architecture in D.C., many of the buildings are created in a classical style. Why is that? Michael Curtis writes in Classical Architecture and Monuments of Washington, D.C., a history guide, buildings that are true to the nation's founding principles are beautiful, celebratory or solemn, appropriate to humanity, fitting the vicissitudes requisite of the citizen. That's contrasted with buildings true to the tenets of scientific progressivism confront humanity with opposition that they are scaled to the state, not to the citizen. Ancient Greek and Roman public buildings were designed to be sturdy and useful, and also to beautify public spaces and inspire civic pride. Throughout the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, public architecture continued to serve these purposes. The Founding Fathers drew inspiration from ancient Greece in the hope of building a great nation of virtue. They wanted America's public buildings to inspire the American people and encourage civic virtue. They sought to use classical architecture to visually connect our contemporary republic with the antecedents of democracy in classical antiquity, reminding citizens not only of their rights but also their responsibilities in maintaining and perpetuating its institutions. In the 1950s, the federal government largely replaced traditional designs for new construction with modernist ones. This practice became official policy after the Ad Hoc Committee on Federal Office Space proposed what became known as the Guiding Principles for Federal Architecture in 1962. The guiding principles implicitly discouraged classical and other traditional designs known for their beauty, declaring instead that the government should use contemporary designs. Examples include the new U.S. Post Office, Department of Energy, Department of Labor, Department of Education, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Housing and Urban Development, the FBI building. These seem to look strikingly similar and resemble concrete blocks, harkening back to the modernist brutalist style built in the 1970s and 1980s. Some of the sides of these buildings don't even have windows. So why did Trump want to start a garden of statues honoring American heroes? In the executive order, Trump cited the recent wave of statue topplings and acts of vandalism that occurred across the nation amid protests following the death of George Floyd. Trump said in his order, to destroy a monument is to desecrate our common inheritance. In recent weeks, in the midst of protests across America, many monuments have been vandalized or destroyed. Adding some local governments have responded by taking their monuments down. He noted that monuments to key figures in American history, Christopher Columbus, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, have been destroyed, vandalized, or removed. He said these statues are not ours alone, to be discarded at the whim of those inflamed by fashionable political passions. They belong to generations that have come before us and to generations yet unborn. He outlined the importance of building monuments and the purpose behind his executive order, saying America owes its present greatness to its past sacrifices. Because the past is always at risk of being forgotten, monuments will always be needed to honor those who came before. He said these statues are silent teachers in solid form of stone and metal. They preserve the memory of our American story and stir in us a spirit of responsibility for the chapters yet unwritten. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and see you soon.